Welcome everybody to episode number 310 of Goulet Q&A. Nice round number there. Fountain pens are still a thing here, and I am still Brian Goulet, and I'm still at Goulet Pens. Today I'm going to be showing you how an ink eradicator works, because that keeps coming up. And I thought I would just show you all, because I have one. And then let's see here. If magnetic cap pens will mess up your automatic watches. I'm curious because I have a couple automatic watches. How major humidity swings can affect fountain pens. The schedule for TWSBI mini pen releases. When blotter paper is helpful. Do breather holes matter? And I spotlight the 3 new exclusive Magna Carta Mag 600s. So it's going to be an action-packed Q&A for you today. I hope you enjoy it. And let's start it out with some feedback. All right, so first one up. This has been a long time coming because Binary Run 7994 a month ago commented on Q&A about wanting to see the newest Franklin Christoph Model 31 that we have. It is an exclusive called Faboloni Abalone, and we had it in stock. And then I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll show you, and I promised that I would in the comments. And then I totally didn't. I'm so sorry. We ran out of stock of it. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't show it. I wasn't thinking specifically about the comment I made to you. And so I was like, okay, I'll wait to show it until we have it back in stock. Well, we got it back in stock now this week, so I'm showing it again, but I apologize for telling you a month ago I would show it, and then I never did, but now I am. So there we go. Anyway, so you wanted to see it. Here it is. It's a beautiful material. This is an exclusive that we have. We only get like one exclusive with Franklin Christoph every year, so it's pretty special for us. Looks really cool. It's a nice, kind of like a teal and black and pink swirl. It's really cool looking. It's the Model 31. It's actually the only Franklin Christoph model that we've ever carried. We've always done exclusive Model 31s because we like them. So there you go. You wanted to show it. So I will just kind of show it in some detail there. We can, why not? I'll zoom in. What the hey? You got time? All right. There it is. Yeah, I could zoom in post-production, but why not do it real time? There you go. There's the material. It looks really cool. Got a lot of depth to it. It's got some kind of sparkliness to it, especially in the black there, but lots of swirl in the teal as well. It's a really cool looking pen. Anyway, so we have this pen available. It's $165, I want to say. I should probably check that before I pulled it up, but $175. Forgive me. $175. You can go check it out. Steel nib, Yovo, cartridge converter. Anyway, we have them available, very limited though. I would not be surprised if these sell out rather quickly. All right, next up, Rickman says, with the Traveler's brass pen, the nib and feed can be unscrewed as a unit. This is when I was talking about last week about nibs being able to swap out on that pen. This one, to be exact. So it can be screwed out as one unit, which is true. I'm gonna get my hands all inked up because this pen is inked, but I don't really care because I wanna show you. So literally you just kind of grab it like that and it just unscrews right out of there. So what Rickman is saying here is that the Schmidt nib and feed unit found on the Benu can just swap right out of here. So you don't even have to pull the nib and feed out of there. Let me see, I've got a Benu right here. So let's try it out. So that can unscrew. Oh yeah, look at that. It's basically identical. So that's cool. Thread pattern switches on there. This is not normal to be able to switch across brands with different nib units like this, but that's really cool. So that's really cool to be able to do that. So I had not tried that. Feel like I should have, but anyway, thank you, Rickman. So that's really cool. So if you do want to swap, you can buy a Schmidt nib unit and just swap it right onto your Traveler's pen. If you want a different nib size than the fine that it comes with, because that's all that it comes with. So that's really cool. I don't know, maybe I'll give that a try now. Give this pen a second life. I like the fine nib on this one though, so it's not been a big deal for me. But anyway, so that's neat. What else we got? Let's see, our paratrooper wife says, great video. Some other ideas for moving inks. This is when I talked about moving ink, 1,000 miles or whatever, are packing in socks, 1 sock per ink bottle, and then use an ornament storage box. Kind of depends on how many bottles you have. So that's kind of neat. So yeah, you can get different types of like packing containers that already exist out there in Christmas ornament boxes. I didn't really think about that, but that's a perfect size thing to be able to use. So thank you for that suggestion. Now let's talk about some new stuff. All right, first off, we have a new Esterbrook Esty. This is the Avalanche. This is a special edition It's kind of a cool color. It's like a blue and gray kind of color. It looks pretty neat. Very icebergy kind of looking. So this is $315 at Goulet Pens. It is a gold-plated number 6 Jowo steel nib, extra fine, fine, medium, broad, 1.1 stub, and extra fine and fine flex as well. So there's flex steel nibs from Jowo if you like those. Those come on it as well. Standard international cartridge on these ones, and this is a diamond cast resin, which looks pretty cool. Limited release of this one. I don't know how many we'll have or how long we'll have it, but go check it out. It looks pretty neat. We also have a new exclusive from Diplomat. This is an arrow called Fuchsia, which Fuchsia is not spelled like I think it is spelled. Fuchsia. I always get that wrong. Anyway, we have it, $196 at Goulet Pens. Jowo nibs on this one, extra fine through broad. Yeah, it looks really cool. It's got that Zeppelin-inspired body, but it is bright pink. So if you want a hot pink arrow, this is the one you've been waiting for. And we have Ferris Wheel Press has a new ink called Gossiping Grapevine. It is a purple ink, as you might assume. It's like a purpley pink with like a wine-colored shimmer. It looks kind of neat. It's got some really good, we did some like nice environmental images for it, so it looks kind of cool. 38 ml bottle on that one, $22. And Ferris Wheel Press Lantern Crossing. This is a $22 bottle of 20 ml ink. It's an orange ink with some wine-colored shimmer. So pretty neat colors from Ferris Wheel Press. They love their shimmer ink, and we want more of it too. So that's it for new stuff. You can check out new arrivals and new stuff on gouletpens.com. And let's do a couple company updates before we get into the questions. So company updates, we have a new video, Yellow Ink Showdown. I'm just keeping on the showdown train. I don't know, it's fun to do. This is the one I kind of alluded to a while ago. Is like, why not do yellow? And then I found out why is because we didn't have some of them in stock. Even some of the popular ones. And I was like, yeah, people just don't buy a lot of yellow inks. So anyway, we got it all together. It was pretty fun. There's definitely some different types of yellows out there. So I don't know, I think it's pretty interesting. If nothing else, it shows some examples of like what's a good like usable yellow. So go check that video out if you haven't seen it already. And then you're probably watching this after the fact, but the day that this video launches, we're doing another mental health half day here at Goulet Pens. So we do them like 10 times a year, kind of depends on the holiday schedule, but we usually do once a month or something. We do a half day. So so I'll share next week what my adventures have been with that. That's it for this time. Let's get into some questions, shall we? I got a bunch of questions, so I want to just jump right into it. All right, first question we've got. It's kind of a two-parter here. So I'm going to do the first part and then I'll do the second part because I don't have enough questions this week already. Okay, this is from Ichiro Fake Name. Ink Eradicator demo, yes, please. It's not really a question. It's kind of a statement, but also a question. I don't know. But I thought I would show you an ink eradicator because it was like, yeah, you know what? I actually have one chilling in my pen cup over there. I've talked about it enough times. Let me just show you how it works. So let's do it. All right, ink eradicators. Now they are made by different brands. I know specifically like Pelican and Lamy has some. There may be a bunch of brands that have them. I don't have any of those. The one that I actually have in my possession is made by Monteverde. But I believe they all work in a similar way. Essentially, it's a double-ended pen, more or less. They're pretty cheap. They're like a couple of bucks. One end is basically a felt tip marker, if you will, that has a conventional blue ink in it. The other end is the actual eradicator part. It's got whatever kind of magic chemical that's in there that eradicates the blue. Again, it just changes like the visibility of the blue. It doesn't actually remove the ink. It just makes it so you don't see it as well. Well, I don't want to write all these out again because that just takes a lot of time and then you're just watching me write stuff. But I have a bunch of different ink colors. So I used Lamy Blue, which is like your kind of straight of the mill, run of the mill, conventional blue that an eradicator is really made for. Diamine washable blues like that. Pelican 4001 blue is like that too. So there's a lot of blues that kind of fall in that range. But I wanted to use a few different types of blues and then a non-blue to really show you what happens with these. And actually, I wanted to try just an off-the-wall one, like an emerald or chivor, like a shimmering kind of thing, just to see what happens with it as well. So that one, let's see here. I'll do a live test on that one since I've already got it inked up. EOC, boom. So I'll let that dry for a sec. Okay, so I have Lamy Blue here. I have Pilot Konpeki, which I use on here as well, if you're familiar with that. Monteverde Blue Skies. That's an exclusive ink we have, but it's a little darker blue ink than your Lamy Blues. Diamine Blue Velvet, which is pretty saturated dark blue as well. And then I used a turquoise or teal, a Diamine Marine, all-time favorite of mine. And then I used Red Dragon, and then of course I have Emerald of Chivor. So I used all of these, wrote with a glass pen, which is, you know, this particular glass pen I have is probably indicative of like a wet medium nib, right? So the way that the ink eradicator works is you have the, you know, clearish, whitish portion of it. So on an ink like Lamy Blue, you kind of right over top of the section that you want to eradicate, you give it a minute for that chemical to work, and it will essentially make it so that the blue is not really there anymore. So I'm going to give that a second to work. You can see it's already kind of disappearing. It's kind of like magic, right? If I do the same thing on these other colors, that's where you actually see here what's happened. So if I go on the Konpeki, it kind of smears some of the blue a little bit, but it, you know, you can see what's going to happen to it. It's going to look like just like that over there. So as you're doing it on other different blues, you can see that it's not working the same. Again, I don't know if it's a particular dye that's in those other blues. I don't know exactly what causes it. And I feel like I might have explained it before because somebody wrote in and gave some of the science behind it, but it did not stick in my brain as to what it was. And I just wanted to do more of a live demo anyway. So with the red, you can see what it's doing there. Diamine Marine, I can't remember if I went over that, but it's either way. You can see it's the Lamy Blue. You could pretty much see that working immediately. And then the other ones is really just not doing anything. It's just kind of smearing it around. Emerald of Chivor, I have no hope that's going to do anything. It's just going to smear that around too. Yeah. And then it's like, is it going to get my eradicator all messed up? Maybe a little bit, but yeah. So you can see there, it did a really good job with the Lamy Blue. So yeah. And then the marker on the other end is meant to, you know, kind of work as you kind of go over top of it. You got to wait for the chemical to dry completely, because if you put it on too fast, then you're going to sort of eradicate the blue that you're, you know, putting down. So then, you know, there, I like those swirls better. Now, does it look exactly like it? No, it looks really wide and broad. So if you're using a fine nib or a stub or something like that, it's going to look corrected. But, you know, arguably, it could look better than like crossing it out or scribbling it out or something like that. So does it have some use? Absolutely. If you're in like a school setting, or if you're in like a more professional setting and you really can't have any mistakes appearing, you can fake it till you make it with an ink eradicator, right? We don't sell these. If you want us to, it's something we certainly can. I mean, you know, this one says here on the thing, it says Monteverde ink, Malibu Blue, and Monteverde Blue. So it says that it works with those two. Clearly it works with Lamy Blue. You know, so it's like it will only work with specific blues that you use, but it can be handy. So if that is of interest to you, let me know, let my team know, and we can look at carrying them. But honestly, it's been 15 years. We get asked about them here and there, but it's never been enough demand where it's warranted us carrying them. But I don't know. I'm surprised at the interest that's happened on Q&A. So that's what it is. That's how it works. All right, and then before I forget, the second part of the question here. So Itcher Fake Name says, I'm glad I've already bought a fistful of Sailors, as the price increase puts them permanently out of my price range. I'm sorry to hear that. Will the increase be applied to pens you already have in stock, like the Persimmon? So I just wanted to answer that quickly because, you know, this is a lot of craziness going on, tariffs and whatnot. Prices are increasing, right? This Sailor price increase happened before, well, it already been planned before the tariff stuff. It sort of happened during some of the tariff things. It's not actually related to the tariffs. That's what we've been told. But anyway, some of the prices went up on their pens. But it was not consistent, right? It wasn't like one blanket thing across the board. And it's a little, you know, Sailor does things a little differently than everybody else. They're kind of unique. So typically what Sailor does is they will keep the prices the same on the pens that have already been launched. And they will change the prices moving forward on new pen launches. So I believe that's what they've done this time, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been a couple here and there. They might have adjusted, but for the most part, basically, if you look at our site now, the price increases that have gone into effect are all updated on our site. I can't say they're going to hold like that forever. the world is crazy and I don't know what will happen in the future. But I looked at persimmon. Persimmon seems to have held where it was at 236. So I don't anticipate that will have a price increase, but its new pens at launch will be at a higher price. And some of Sailor's prices went up not insignificantly. And it also depends on if it's like a special edition, limited edition, if it comes with an ink and it's a gift set kind of a thing. There's a lot of different factors involved. So I can't just say like this pen is this price, but go look at our website. You can see it. Unfortunately, a lot of times when there are price increases, we don't necessarily get a heads up about it. It's certainly not like our call to do it, but we have to we're an authorized retailer and we have to, have the prices set where the manufacturer wants them. So anyway, that's what's going on with that. So just in general, there was a big price increase that happened. And for the time being, I think what you see is what they will be. So anyway, that's what I got on that. Let's go on to the next question. Next question, number 2, Real D. Lysachev. Okay. It says, as someone who wears an automatic watch, I have certain fear of magnets. So I wonder how fountain pens with magnetic caps like the Monteverde you've shown would affect accuracy of the watch that you wear while you write. So +1 phobia into your phobia collection. Honestly, I did not know that this was a thing. So I took the question because I personally was interested because I have a couple automatic watches. And then also I just thought it was an interesting thing to know. I don't think I've ever been asked this question. So at this point, the thousands of questions I've answered on video and many others off video, it's pretty rare for me to get something I've never seen before. So thank you. You get a gold star for that one. So the pen that maybe you're referring to that I most recently showed is a Monteverde Regatta. This is the Regatta Vega, which is pretty neat. Regatta is famously a magnetic cap, which, can vary in design from pen to pen. So it's like, I can't say for sure every pen is going to be exactly the same. But in principle, you're kind of looking at something similar here. So I did a little research. I was like, are automatic watches sensitive to magnets? Because I didn't even know that was a thing. Because I'm not like a real watch guy. I just have a few watches. I think the automatic watches are really cool, but I didn't know that they were so sensitive to magnets. And it's not like if you have a magnet in the room, it's going to get, all messed up. But it's more like there's a certain amount of magnetism that if it's exposed, over a prolonged time, apparently the way it messes it up is it can magnetize the balance spring inside the watch and cause it to either run fast or even stop altogether, or it can kind of mess up the balance spring. Apparently, if it's not totally messed up, you can demagnetize it as well. That's a thing, I guess. I've never done it, but I've read that that's a thing. Or take it to a jeweler or watchmaker or whatever, and they can do that as well if you don't know how. So it's not like if your pen is in the room, like if it's near the watch at all, it could be a problem. But I did a little research. It seems like on the spectrum of magnetic small objects, a pen cap is maybe a little bit on the stronger side. And so, it's usually like a rare earth magnet that's used in these things, especially because there's just not a ton of space to have these magnets in here. So there are going to be stronger magnets in order to kind of fit within the given cap. So, it is the kind of thing like on a pen like this, like if a lot of magnetic caps, the magnet can be like up inside the cap and it's not that big of a deal. You may get some slight magnetism, especially if you have multiple of the pens next to each other. You can get some magnetic reaction because it's essentially like doubled. But, really it's just kind of meant to attract to the cap. Now, like this one in particular, let's see here. I had an ink syringe here that had like a steel needle on it, which is a relatively lightweight thing. So it's like, yes, technically it can be somewhat magnetic near it, you can sort of see it's like sort of hanging on there. Is that an issue? Maybe, it's like a balance spring is not that heavy either. So yeah, I think from doing my research, very brief internet research, I'm by no means an authority. It would seem that if you have an automatic watch and you have a pen with a magnet in it and you store it next to it for like a decent amount of time, there is a non-zero chance risk of, magnetizing that balance spring and maybe messing it up. Now, I've never had any manufacturer that specifically said like there's a risk of that there's but I don't know if that's something that would be on their radar necessarily. I don't know if that needs disclaimers. I've never had at least to my knowledge, we've never had a customer reach out saying that their watch got messed up from a pen with magnetic cap. Maybe people are aware of it and they just avoid it. Maybe it just hasn't been an issue. But it seems like the biggest risk you have is if you're storing them together. So you wouldn't want to like throw them in a desk drawer or throw them in your pocket or something and have them both next to each other for a long time. Because essentially like the magnet, the longer it's near something else that's also, metal, could kind of magnetize it. So the potential is there, I guess. I don't think it's something that's happening all the time, but it's something you should be aware of if you have both of these things and you have them both near each other. Now, I think the question you're really asking is, if you're writing with the pen, is that going to be an issue? Like me, I wear my watch on the opposite hand of how I write. So if I have, really the magnet on this pen is in the cap. There's not anywhere else like, it's not, I think there's like probably steel components in here that the magnet attracts to. But the magnet's all happening in the cap. So the safest thing would be to like not post it and just have the cap off away from my left hand and then write. And I'd be perfectly fine because there's nothing magnet happening other than in the cap. So, the other thing is you may want to post it, right? That makes a lot of sense. So theoretically, I've got it 10, 12 inches away from my other hand as I'm writing. That's a far enough distance where I don't think there's any significant risk whatsoever. From what I understand, again, brief, non-verified internet research, it seems like, you start to get some slight risk with prolonged exposure at like 8 to 10 centimeters, like maybe 4 inches or 5 inches, which if you're wearing the watch on the same hand with the pen that you're writing and it's posted, so you have like the magnet right here, I'm not left-handed, but if I was, I measured here and it's like 8 to 10 centimeters right about here. So it's like starting to get to the distance where if I was writing for hours a day, every day with this magnetic near the watch, theoretically, there's a chance that it could mess something up. So there's a non-zero risk of that happening. So again, very specific scenarios. If you're posting your magnetic cap pen and wearing your watch on the same hand that you write with, and you do it for a long, long time, it could eventually cause some issues. That level of exposure, I feel like you could demagnetize it and not be a problem. But safest thing would just be don't have the two in the same place. Don't use them at the same time. The days you're wearing those automatic watches, don't use a magnetic cap pen, or just don't buy a magnetic cap pen in the first place. It's not like they're everywhere and they're unavoidable. But if you really like the pen and you really want to use it, just be aware of that risk. It's an extra thing you have to think about. But if you're wearing an automatic watch and you're using fountain pens, you are clearly somebody that thinks a lot about the things that you use. So it's just an extra little thing to consider. None of these are like the most convenient things to use. So if it was that much of an issue, you probably wouldn't use either of them, let alone both. But I feel you. I have both of these things. So I thank you for the question because I was not aware that magnets were like that impactful on an automatic watch. Now, honestly, probably the risk of any other magnetic object is higher than, your pen, because I like have my watch and I don't have like really nice automatic watches. Mine are like Kenneth Cole watch that was like $100 or something. I don't buy really, really crazy watches. So like I don't treat it with kid gloves. I'll, have it in my whatever, little thing that I, keep next to my bed with the, all the stuff, my chapstick and all the other things that I like pull out of my pockets and throw there. I might have my watch in there and it's possible I could have something else that's got a magnet in it near there. And now I will just now have to pay attention to that more. So anyway, little watch advice there. So thank you. Appreciate that. And I'm glad I could answer it. All right. This question is from Sergio and says, hey, Brian, a question. We have huge variations of air humidity here in Buenos Aires, Argentina, the whole year. It can go from 30 to 99% humidity in a day. That's crazy. We have big swings here in Virginia as well, but I don't think the swings are that massive. That's pretty wild. So depending on the day, my fountain pens suffer from dryness or can leak when shaking them a bit. Only my Safari, Vac Mini, and Faber-Castell Lume are not affected. So those are 2 cartridge pens and a Vac Mini, which seals off. There's a pattern, I think. How do I avoid this? The only real way is to ditch less expensive pens. I mean, the Safari and the Faber-Castell Lume, they're like $20, $30 pens. I don't know what they cost in Buenos Aires. So I don't know if they are expensive. I don't know if they are the inexpensive pens you're referring to, or if you're referring to other pens that are less expensive. But either way, I don't think the cost of the pen necessarily is the factor here. Ultimately, what's going on, humidity is a factor. I also think maybe barometric pressure is probably a factor as well, because barometric pressure can sort of have an impact like an elevation change, like if you're changing elevations, that can have an impact as well. But even if you don't live in an environment that's that drastic like that, if you live in a really humid environment and you go inside an air-conditioned building, you can have a pretty massive swing in humidity as well. So there are definitely ways that, your pens can go through rather extreme temperature changes, pressure changes, humidity changes, really for anybody. But certainly if you live in an environment where the weather is changing very drastically, it's going to be like extra, right? It's going to be additional kind of factors at play here. So none of these one of these things is going to like really drastically impact your fountain pens. Like it doesn't change that much in a day where it's going to be super drastic. I think it's really interesting, the question you're asking, because even at 30% humidity, you should not have a problem with your pen drying out. Just that factor alone. There might be something else going on there. Maybe the pen needs to be cleaned out. Maybe the ink itself is just really dry, or it's like an ink pen pairing that just two don't like play nice together or something. It could be maybe the nib adjustment, or maybe there's some like paper fibers caught up in your slit of your nib that needs to be kind of cleaned out. It seems like maybe there's something else in your pen that's kind of like on the borderline of maybe impeding the flow, and it could be that no one factor alone would cause it to write dry. But if you combine maybe a dry writing ink and the pen kind of needs to be cleaned out and the humidity drops a lot, maybe then it seems dry. So, first thing I would do is make sure you have good like pen capping hygiene, I guess. Make it a habit to cap that pen regularly. The longer you leave a pen sitting out uncapped, the more it's going to kind of naturally dry out anyway. So right off the bat, I would just go ahead and give a pen a thorough cleaning, whatever pens that you're having issues with, because that will at least kind of give you a baseline. That'll assure you you're starting with something that is solid and ready to go. But I think that, maybe playing with some ink combinations and things like that, but going from a really, really humid environment to a still fairly humid at 30% shouldn't really make a difference in terms of how your pen writes at all, in terms of it being like wet enough. Because again, the only issue with humidity is, if you have really high humidity, it might take longer for the ink to dry on the paper, because just the water is not going to evaporate as quickly out of the ink and it's not going to dry, but even then the paper, it depends. Most paper absorbs ink. So it would still be absorbed into most paper. But if you have a really slick ink with a lot of sizing on it, like a Tomoe River or something, and it's really humid, you could have a longer dry time. But that doesn't seem to be your issue. You're having an issue of like, dryness, the pen suffering, its pen itself writing dry. I don't think that would be an issue even at 30% humidity. I can't see why that would be an issue. So there might be something else going on there. I can't say exactly what. But the other thing, you said the pen can leak when shaking them a bit. So that to me feels like more of a pressure issue. So that, if you have changes in pressure, this is the same issue you have like when you're taking off in a plane, or if you're driving up in the mountains and changing elevation a lot. Essentially if you have a pen that has a large ink capacity, doesn't have a lot of ink in it, but it's got a lot of air, and that air is trapped. It has nowhere to get out. So if you have your pen, kind of stored nib down, or maybe it's on the side, and the air has no place to escape, the pressure, is either going to, the pressure is going to remain the same inside the pen, but depending on what else is happening in the environment, the pressure is either going to increase or decrease. Really, the issue you have is if the pressure is decreasing. So if you filled your pen, and you've been writing with it and whatnot, you got a lot of air in there, and the outside environment, the pressure drops a lot, whether it's you're taking up in a plane and the pressure is dropping, or, you're going up in elevation on a mountain and you're driving or something, or the barometric pressure drops significantly or something. There's a potential there for there to be more burping, coming out of the pen. And especially if you combine shaking with it too, you take that additional pressure and you're shaking it, what you're doing is you're breaking the surface tension of the water inside that ink. And that can cause it to destabilize and then kind of burp out of there. So again, no one of these factors would necessarily cause all of that, but it could be when you combine all of these things together, it could be an issue. So really, I think the issue you're having with some of these pens is that probably, if I had to guess, I would say you have maybe larger ink capacity pens where there's not as much ink, but there's a lot of air in it. So if you do that, if you put it, you just fill them up all the way, then you're not going to have those same issues. Also, if you just store your pen's nib up, if the environment around you is changing, you're not flying or whatever, there's not a lot you can do with that. But store them either sideways or nib up, and you should not have as many issues with the pens kind of burping and stuff like that. You could still have it like while you're writing, I guess, but if you store a nib up, it's going to be less of an issue anyway. Those are the things that I have for you. So again, sorry, one more thing I wanted to mention, the issue that you're not having that with your Vac Mini. That's because even though it has a pretty decent ink capacity, it's not crazy. It's like 1 mil on that pen. Not as big as most other, is it 1 mil or 2 mil? I can't remember. I feel like it's not a ton of ink. It's either 1 or 2 mils. I can't remember. Either way, it's not a massive ink capacity, but it's still bigger than most. So that one, because it's a vac filler, when it's closed all the way, the ink chamber is sealed off. So I think that's why you're not having an issue with that pen. And then you're talking about like the Safari and the Faber-Castell Lume. Those are cartridge filling pens. Most cartridge filling pens, there's just not enough, air kind of space inside those cartridges to cause an issue. So, I tend to find that with most cartridge converter pens, whether you're using a cartridge or a converter with it, shouldn't really make much of a difference. That they tend to not burp and leak and stuff as much. It's usually like the piston and the vac filling pens, or an eyedropper converted pen is even more the culprit. Those are where you're going to have more issues. So the pen type you're using, the filling mechanism, how full it is, those are the things that you can most control in your situation. Let's move on to the next one. This is from Sharon Beck. Brian, does TWSBI have any timetable on their releases of mini pens? So the Mini and the Mini AL, they haven't done a ton of them, I will admit. They do a lot more on the Eco and the Eco T. And then they do some on the 580 and the 580 AL. Rarely on the VAC, but they've done a few. Okay, so anyway, Sharon says, I'm yearning for one, but the black one, meaning the TWSBI Mini, but the black one doesn't excite me as much as the white and rose gold one that I missed out on. Oh, that was a really nice looking one. I'm sorry you missed it. You might be able to get one secondhand somewhere. So TWSBI doesn't release a whole ton of them. They do not have any regular schedule for those, unfortunately. I cannot recall how many minis, like special minis they've done, but it's not been a lot of them. They've done mini ALs or there's no mini ALR. They've done mini ALs more than they've done just straight up minis. And again, that pen's been out for, I don't know, at least a decade. They've probably done, I don't know, 3 or 4 over that time. So it's not often. And usually when they do them, they don't stick around long. I don't think it's like the most popular pen model. And whenever TWSBI does them, I can't imagine that they're doing like massive quantities. So it's kind of thing like there's might be a loyal following for those minis. And then when they do have special ones available, they sell, and that's kind of it. It's not like they sell it in a day or anything. I mean, I remember we had the white and rose gold for a little bit of time. But again, I'm so sorry. I don't have another way to get you one. But basically when next time you see one, unfortunately, you're not going to get a heads up on it, really. But next time you see it, just jump right on it. That's my best advice. Next question. This is from Pamela Snyder, who says, can you talk about blotter paper? Aeroful is my paper of choice, which is a very ink resistant paper. But some inks take hours to dry. I believe it. If you used blotter paper, I assume that it will stifle the ink properties. I have a small A6 commonplace book from Hobonichi that I believe they use Tomori River paper, that I can't just quickly add something and close it. Specifically, Noodler's Southwest Sunset and Black Swan and Australian Roses. So those are not inks with too crazy of properties, but they are very heavily saturated and very heavy shading inks. So I wanted to demonstrate a little bit. So I have a Goulet notebook, which has Tomoe River paper in it. It's not an A6. Well, it's close to an A6. This is meant to fit the Traveler's Passport. So pretty close to an A6 size. Not that that necessarily matters in this case, but I wanted to use some ink with it. I'm going to use a shimmering ink. Why not? Because I want to demonstrate kind of what the blotter does. I have here a rocker blotter with the Jacques Herbin blotter paper. Blotter paper is nothing that special. It's just paper that's absorbent. It's not like it's a paper towel or anything. You know, but it's more ink absorbent than certainly, you know, the specialty paper. So I'm going to write on here. Let's see here, Jacques Herbin. And there's a broad nib too. So this is going to be nice and wet. Jacques Herbin, Emerald of Chivor. Okay. Boom. So if I'm writing quickly and I got to go and I fold this thing up, go on my merry way, put it in my pocket, rubs all around, look what happens. A lot of that ink transfers onto the other side of the page. And essentially what I've done is I've used the other side of the paper, the other side of the notebook as my blotter paper. This is a situation that most people are going to end up in. Now, in that situation, like I can still see the red sheen and stuff like that coming up pretty good. It's not smearing anymore because I smeared it all over there. But if I wanted to be in a situation where I'm faster, I don't know if you're on the go. I mean, having a rocker blotter, this is really meant as more of a desk item. And this particular one actually was made for me custom. Customer sent it to me, which was kind of cool. But you can't get this one. That's what I'm saying. But we have a Jacques Herbin one that is similar in principle, similar in size. But anyway, so if I write on here, you know, again, Jacques Herbin, oh my gosh, okay. Forgive my handwriting. I really can't write and talk at the same time. So, but I'm just trying to get a similar kind of a look, right? So similar to Chivor, okay? So if I am at my desk and I need to fold up my notebook and then go, what I can do is I can take this and basically just rock it across. So it didn't smear, and let's see how good a job. I can do it multiple times too, because I really put it heavy on there a couple times. So looks good. Rub it on there. Maybe a teensy bit of transfer, but obviously not like it was before. So that's really the goal, right? Now what you can do, you can get the rocker blotter paper. We used to have the Herbin, you can get it pink and white. And it comes in like an A5 size sheet. So you can actually take a whole sheet of that if you have a bigger notebook, like an A5 size notebook. And I've done this in other notebooks that I have. I actually cut it to fit the size of the notebook, which doubles as a bookmark for one. But I just keep it in the middle of wherever I'm writing. And then when I need to go, I just fold it up and go. And the blotter paper absorbs whatever I wrote with. I don't have to carry a rocker blotter around. And then it kind of acts as a bookmark, and then it just absorbs, and life is good, you know? And I just keep it in there all the time. I always have blotter paper handy, keep it in the notebook. So that's the preferred thing that I would say is you can use that blotter paper, or if you just have, I mean, you don't have to use the Herbin blotter paper. It's just the stuff that we carry because it's made especially for that purpose. But if you get any type of blotter paper, I believe you can get it, I don't know, wherever else you get paper. I don't go shopping for blotter paper elsewhere because I have it. But, you know, I don't believe it's like the hardest thing in the world to come by. But you can get that, and then you can just carry it in your notebook. That's the best thing that I recommend. And if you want to look kind of cool and have it at your desk and be like, oh yeah, I have my writing pad and I've got my blotter because I'm an executive and I got a fountain pen, you know, that's cool. It completes the look, you know, so that you can go that route too. But really it's just the paper is the most important part. And the rocker part, like it just allows you, it's really the rocker thing I think is made for if you're doing a lot of signatures. Like if I'm a big business tycoon and I'm signing checks all day, you know, then you can rock it. You know, it's large enough to fit a signature. That's generally what the rocker blotters are for. You can get bigger like rocker blotters. We don't sell them because this is not something a lot of people are using, but you can get ones that are like big enough to fit like across a whole like page, you know, and you can go that way. But these little ones are great, and they're not that expensive, and the paper is even less expensive getting it out of the blotter. But there you go. That's how it works. Is there different absorbency of blotter paper? Probably. I don't really know. I'm not an expert on blotter paper. I just know generally how it works, and I know the Herbin stuff because we've literally carried it since maybe our first order that we ever placed for fountain pen goods, because we ordered, Jacques Urbon was one of our first brands we ever carried. I don't know if it was literally in the first order we ever placed, but it would have been early Goulet Pens days. And we've kept carrying it, so it must be selling well enough to not drop it. So anyway, now you know how that works. I'm showing you ink eradicators. I'm showing you blotter paper. It's like all the weird random stuff. Let's talk about wax seals next. I'm just kidding. We don't really sell wax seal stuff anymore because that really dropped off a cliff in terms of popularity. Anyway, sorry. I totally blew past your question there. You were talking about, do you sacrifice the look of the ink? I guess maybe I can do one. I will just leave, I'll leave it untouched. That would have been good to do earlier, and then I could have been talking this whole time and letting the ink dry. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm really messing up my handwriting. You're like, I can't even tell if it's smeared because your handwriting's so terrible. I'm just gonna kind of let that dry a little bit. I'm gonna see if it makes a meaningful difference in terms of the look, and all that kind of stuff. Now, what I will say from my experience of using the rocker thing, if you let it sit for like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then you blot it, most of the ink has dried on the page. There might be just like a couple of the really, really wet parts that haven't dried, and you blot those up, it hasn't meaningfully changed the look of the whole ink. So I don't think that's a huge risk. I think if you're taking off enough ink to where it's going to drastically change the look of it, then that would be enough ink to really smear and mess up elsewhere in your notebook. So it's probably a pretty good trade-off. It's still not going to look great if it's all smeared and all that kind of stuff and transferred to the other side, so I don't think you need to worry about that so much. I think if you're going to use the blotter, that's cool. You can use it. It's not like it's going to drastically change everything. I mean, you can see here, even just like from when I directly smeared it and that took the most ink, I did the blotter thing on the second one and now it's untouched. Is there more shading? Is there more shimmer on the untouched one? A little bit. I can see with my eyes. It's going to be hard to get on the camera, but I can see maybe a little more shimmer and I can see maybe a little more shading, but honestly, it's not that drastic, especially on the second one. It's not that drastic. I see actually, somewhat more sheen over here. I don't know why, but not as much shimmer, I guess. It really is going to depend on the ink, but I don't think you have to worry a ton about that changing the look of it too drastically. I think whatever you're blotting away, even on the most ink-resistant paper like this, it's just going to be the excess stuff. So, give it a trade-off. Wait as long as you possibly can before you fold up your notebook and run to let that ink really, really shine, really dry on there as much as it can, then blot it, then run. And then you'll be good. I don't think you have to overthink it too much. All right, we got Ed Harrington says, I have used fountain pens most of my life for drawing, specifically the Rotring Art Pens. More recently, I ventured into trying out other brands for daily pocket carry, Travelers and Kaweco. And I realized that Kaweco Sport is the first nib that I've ever used that featured a breather hole. The Rotring and the Travelers are without. My question for you is, how necessary is the breather hole? And is it just a throwback to earlier quill designs? So here's a couple parts to this question. The long and short of it is you don't have to overthink it too much. It doesn't make enough of a difference to where it should or shouldn't impact any buying decision on any pen that you make, other than personal preference. That's the long and short of it. Partially, it is a little bit of a throwback to some of the olden days. Some of it's like tradition or whatever, or just aesthetics. It's in there. Especially some of the breather holes on like vintage pens. They were, like heart shaped. Like you still have that on the Platinum Century, or like crescent shaped, like you have on Conklin. So there's like some character, there's some aesthetic and some design element to it. It's called a breather hole. Especially on older pens, it maybe made somewhat more of a difference. On modern pens, probably not as much of a difference in terms of like actually breathing. It's not breathing. Essentially, it's maybe in some way meant to help assist with like the air-ink interchange that happens on the pen. So like ink is flowing out of the pen. Air needs to flow in to displace the ink that's coming out of the ink reservoir. That's how fountain pens work. It's a controlled leak. That's all it is. But if you, have a breather hole or not, I on certain designs of certain pens, maybe it can make a minuscule difference, but I really think it's kind of overplayed in terms of how much of a difference it actually makes. There's other factors that I think actually make a little more of a difference, one being aesthetic. And the bigger one, I think, is actually not having to do anything with flow. It has to do with kind of the stability of the nib itself. So with steel nibs, like what you're talking about here, I don't think it really makes any difference at all. The difference that a breather hole makes with gold nibs, specifically gold nibs that are being flexed, there's stress that's being put on those tines. That breather hole can help to spread out the stress that happens at that point on the tines and keep stress cracks from forming and then ruining the nib. So that is honestly probably the most use that it has. You have that with something like your Magna Carta, which I'll show you here in a little bit because it's a spotlight today. But on a steel nib pen, it's not really making much of a difference. So that's why you see some have breather holes, some don't. Does it really matter? Not really much on a steel pen. Does it matter on a gold pen that flexes? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but not really because of the flow so much, more because of the stress cracks. So yeah, I don't know, just get whatever pen you like and don't really worry too much about the breather hole is kind of the long and short of it. I want to do a quick spotlight and then we'll wrap things up here. All right, pen spotlight. We got the Magna Carta Mag 600. I have 3 different pens to show you. One of them is different than the others, and I'll show you exactly how. So one of them is the black chased ebonite. So there is a regular black ebonite for $350. Why is it so much? It's because of the nib, really. But it's also, ebonite's not the cheapest thing in the world. These are really nicely made, it almost doesn't look like ebonite. It's highly polished ebonite, but it is. You can smell it. But anyway, so very vintagey kind of vibe, right? So really nice gold nibs on it. It's got a nice little heart-shaped breather hole on there, which we talked about what breather holes are for. So same gold nib, true flex, that is some of the flexiest flex you'll ever use in your life. That's really the appeal of these pens. But, this ebonite, normally $350 without the chased thing. The chased is $400. So you're paying a premium, but it's because it's got this chased look. It's really cool. If you're into that, it's a guilloche look to it. That's about it. That's really what it is. The other ones that are a bit more out there are these ones, these Art Deco. So these are all exclusive to Goulet. We wanted to do these and thought that was kind of neat. So we worked with Hiran from Magna Carta and ideated these things. So the Art Deco is kind of neat. So it's got like this, fan look, and this is engraved into it. And, this is not injection mold either. This is a cast resin that is then machine cut with all these little fans. And the reason that makes a difference, I think, is that it really impacts. I'm not sure how well it comes across on camera, but it really catches the light. Like all these little fan parts, and they are, I will say, you can feel the texture on them. There's definitely a texture. I'm not sure how well it comes across here. Particularly, you can see it when the light hits it like that, that you can see there's like a bit of an edge to it, right? So if you're sensitive to texture, you're going to hate this pen. Don't even bother. Me personally, I'm not. It's like Rachel is really bothered by texture. So she picks it up and she's like, no, not going to touch it. This one is okay. This one's smoother. It's not very deep. So she doesn't mind this one. She's my gauge for like sensitivity to texture. She hates the TWSBI 580 ALR. Hates that grip. I don't mind it. I don't know if it's because, I play bass guitar and I play guitar and a bunch of other things. I work with my hands all the time. I think I've just built up calluses on my fingers and I just this is not as sensitive. Anyway, whatever. I'm rambling. So, but it's this really cool material and it's also translucent, as you can see in the video, which looks really, really cool. So it's got this neat look to it. It looks like a crystal, like a nice crystal, like dishware or something like that. And it's real, to me, really fits well with the like Art Deco kind of vibe, that whole like translucent, kind of like colored glass with that like shell kind of vibe. It just looks really cool. And I have it inked up, so I'm going to write with it in a second. This is the blue one, Art Deco blue, and then Art Deco purple, which looks really nice. It's a little bit more of a pinky purple, but it looks really cool. I don't know which one. I might actually like the pink one better. I'm not sure, but either way, I wanted to do just a little writing sample with it because why not? Just to show you in case you haven't seen these nibs before. And again, I'm not like a flex master or anything. but the flex is just so soft on this pen. Like, I have to write with the lightest touch to not flex it. And then if I write with any amount of pressure, it just flexes. And it's a very wet writer too. So this is one where the blotting paper would be a good contender. So yeah, you can get some really great line variation with this one. I'm like trying to touch so light, I'm actually not touching it to the page. That's why it's doing that. Yeah, it's got ebonite feed, so it flows really well. Really, really cool. And then the other cool thing, I wanted to demonstrate this too, is you can eyedropper convert these, which on a normal pen, sure, gets you a big ink capacity and stuff. But I think it would look really cool in the Art Deco because it's basically a demonstrator. Now, the one thing I will say, if you're going to be eyedropper converting these, there's not an O-ring in here. So I think that it would probably be wise to take a little bit of silicone grease and put it on the threads, just to give it a little extra. You know, the threads are pretty tight, and I think it'll do an okay job sealing it, but just in case, you know, I'm going to take a little silicone grease and just like on the end of a toothpick here. And these are not deep threads, so you don't need a ton of that grease. But I'm just going to put it in here, and I'm going to kind of like spread it around on those threads, mostly at the start of the threads, like towards the front, because then as I thread it in, it'll spread it around as it goes in there. So there we go. Put that in. Fingers are already all inky, so I'll just keep it going. There we go. So now I got some silicone grease in that threads. That should help it out a little bit. I maybe could have put a little bit more. I'm not sure. But either way. So I'm going to take, this is not full on ink. This is just inky water. Just so it's easier for me to clean out the pen, just for my own convenience's sake. But let me grab my syringe. So I'm going to fill this thing up. I just want to demonstrate with you what the eyedropper looks like, just in case you're curious. If you don't know anything about eyedropper pens, you'd be like, what the heck are you talking about? So this is where you take a cartridge converter pen and you convert it to an eyedropper. Meaning like use a syringe, or you can use an eyedropper too, and you fill the whole body with ink. What the heck, I'll do a little more. Should have done this before I filled it. A little bit of silicone grease on these threads too, just for protection. Silicone grease found at gouletpens.com. Boom. There we go. Put that on the threads. Again, this is just inky water, but it gets you the idea. I mean, that's kind of cool, right? So you can kind of slosh it back and forth. I think that looks pretty neat, especially with this like material. I don't know. It's got cool vibes. So I thought that was fun. I literally just wanted to do it myself. So that's why I did it. And I just recorded it so you can see it too. So there you go. That's the Art Deco pen. Again, it's $400. It's not the cheapest pen in the world. But if you want a modern flex nib pen that writes like a true vintage flex, this is the best one you can do. I mean, personally, I think it's the best you can get. And we got three new styles that you can go with. And that ink is still not dry. Let's use my little blotter here. Why not? See what it does. Boom. Okay. Well, I kind of smeared it a little bit because there's so much ink on there. That's what we got. Anyway, that's it. That's it for that pen. Let's do some Brian's Adventures. All right, Brian's Adventures. I'm gonna make this quick because I've not been very adventurous in the last week. We had Mother's Day, so we did some Mother's Day activities. That was fun. Didn't do anything crazy, but I made sure that Rachel didn't have to cook a thing or clean a dish. So I got to begrudgingly, or not begrudgingly, I wasn't begrudging. I got my two teenage children to, getting them to help was one thing. Getting them to help without arguing with each other was a bit more of a battle than I anticipated. I think because neither of them really wanted to do this stuff anyway. But then when they both had to do it together, they were sort of taking it out on each other, as siblings often do. It was nothing dramatic, but it was just like, you know, part of the gift I wanted was to make it a relaxing day and experience for Rachel, and my kids like, wah, 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 you know, critiquing each other for how they're cutting the oranges or whatever, you know. It was not giving the vibes that I wanted Rachel to have. So, you know, I added to it by then trying to coach my children through it. So she got to hear all of that. It was like, kids, can you part of the gift for your mom is to not have her hear us arguing. Can we like maybe just keep things to ourselves a little bit? So anyway, she wasn't stressed out about it. It was a good day overall. I have great kids. But that was kind of cool. So it was neat. Had my parents over. We had a little brunch thing and all that kind of stuff. You know, got her some like bath salts and, you know, stuff like that. Relaxing stuff. So that was cool. And then we're in this major project right now. Just our clutter has just, you know, gathered up in our house over time. I'm a clutterer myself. It's never Rachel that's the problem. It's always me. So it just got to a point where it's like, we're going to make a family effort here to just like every day pick an area and deal with it. Because it's just really ever since COVID, stuff has just gathered up and, you know, kids' art projects and all these different things. So we're in the middle of doing that in a more concerted effort, and it's really paying off. The house is getting much more straightened up. It's really nice. And the fact that we're all kind of doing it together is really helpful rather than just like one of us taking a Saturday and going nuts and feeling like we're swimming up a waterfall. We're all able to sort of do it together and feel proud about it. So that's cool. And then, you know, lots of weeding. I had a lot of weeding that we needed to do here at the office. So I did a bunch of that, and then I felt motivated to do some at home as well, because I just really got behind on that. I mentioned last week that there's like some poison oak that was in there. Well, I had sprayed it. It sort of died, but it was still like there, and it's like underground. I don't know if it's going to kill the whole plant. So I was like, I think I'm just going to roll the dice, and I'm going to rip that stuff out. I'm super allergic. So I was like, okay, I got a glove up. You know, I was like, I'm going to put on multiple pairs of disposable gloves, you know, wear long sleeves, cover myself up, do everything, take all that stuff. I'm not going to even put it in like the wagon that I normally use. I'm just going to rip out the poison oak and put it directly into a trash bag, double bag it, throw it away, you know, wash my clothes immediately, scrub up really good. And I was like, still halfway expecting to be like completely broken out in a rash. But I got to say, it's been, as of this recording, it's been 3 days and I'm good. So I think, usually it would show up in like 4 to 6 hours after being exposed. So I think I'm really good. It's a matter of like, did I get it all? Am I going to come across it later and then break out? I don't know. We'll see, but seem to have dodged the bullet on that one. And that's pretty much it for my adventures. I've been playing a lot of drums too, you know. Yeah, so that's a bit for now. You know, thank you for watching. Leave comments, all that kind of stuff. I had a lot of good questions. I had a bunch that I wanted to answer that I ended up saving. So it's good. Keep asking me questions because I like the more I have to choose from, the better quality, you know, content I can make for you all. So check out Goulet Pens for fountain pen, ink, and paper, all that kind of stuff. And then I got a fun fact for you. So my fun fact, I'm a little jealous. If you actually went to this concert, I'm super jealous. But at my alma mater, Virginia Tech, Metallica just recently had a concert there. So this would have been Wednesday, not this week, but the week before, May 7th, 2025. Metallica had a concert at Lane Stadium at Virginia Tech, which has like 60,000 people in the stadium, which I've seen a football game there. It was a few years ago, but it was right before COVID, I think, actually, like 5, 6 years ago. Yeah, it was like 2019, I think. That wasn't that recent, but still. It's crazy. It's a crazy experience there. And I was like in the military band marching, so I marched on the field, and it's sentimental. But at the start of every football game, before the team runs out onto the field, it always plays Enter Sandman. I can't imagine what those music rights cost the school. But it's an awesome experience, and everybody jumps up and down as they're playing Enter Sandman in the stadium. So I was like, oh my gosh, Metallica is actually going to be playing at the stadium. So it happened recently, as I heard about it way too late, and I would have had to pay exorbitant scalper prices for tickets. I was like, I'll just have to miss this one. But anyway, my heart was there. But I saw a news article that says that this is all one big setup here. So apparently the Seismic Observatory at Virginia Tech, which is about a mile away from campus, had actually measured 2 minor seismic events during the concert while they were playing Enter Sandman. So, you know, basically you had 60,000 people that were jumping up and down during this song to the point where it was measurable in their seismic activity. So it registered almost like as a minor earthquake. I just thought that was awesome and a fun fact. And it makes me sad that I wasn't there for that because that would be amazing. But still, that's kind of cool. Anyway, so that's all I got for you this week. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'll be back next week with more. Thanks for watching, and right on. I don't know where we'll end up putting this in the video. I just recorded everything, but I forgot. I have this bin over here. So last week when I dunked the paper for the Diamine Forever inks, I left it here all week. So it's literally been sitting in this bin for a week. And all the writing is still there. The paper has seen better days. I don't know how long the paper is going to last until it just like disintegrates, but it's all still there. The Emerald of Chivor, you can barely see that something was there. And now, yeah, it's at the point now where it's like just me like marking it with the pen is like making marks on the paper. I don't think the paper is going to last much longer. But anyway, how often do I get the opportunity to soak ink on paper for an entire week underwater and then still have it be visible in literally every shade? So I thought that was worth showing. Enjoy.